Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Welcome to the daily quiz discussion for the 16th of August 2022. Beginning with the first question of the day, which reads, consider the following statements about Sri Aurobindo. There are three question statements given here. The first one reads, being an advocate of revolutionary nationalism, he never took part in the activities of the Indian National Congress. The second statement reads, he was arrested in 1908 in connection with the Alipore conspiracy case. And the third statement reads, one of the main literary works of Sri Aurobindo is the poem Savitri. Which of the above statements is or are correct? Please have a look at the options given. What is the context? This article from the PAB takes note of the Indian Prime Minister remembering Sri Aurobindo on his birth anniversary. Please note, Sri Aurobindo, born Aurobindo Ghosh, was born on 15th of August 1872. So this year marks the 150th birth anniversary of Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo was a notable figure in India's independence struggle. He was also a noted Indian philosopher. Coming back to the question, consider the first statement. This statement is wrong. Why? Because despite of his advocacy of revolutionary nationalism, he actively took part in the activities of the Indian National Congress. Most notable among them being his participation in the Congress sessions of 1906 as well as 1907. Note, 1907 was the Surat session of Congress where the moderates and extremists split. Aurobindo Ghosh was on the side of the extremists. Also note, Sri Aurobindo had a role to play in the setting up of the Anushilan Samiti of Calcutta in the year 1902. Now consider the second statement. This statement is correct. The Alipore conspiracy case, also known as the Alipore bomb case, saw the trial of a large number of Indian nationalists of the Anushilan Samiti in Calcutta. The charges on them were that they were trying to wage a war against the British government. This trial was in the wake of an attempt to assassinate the chief presidency magistrate, Kingsford, by Khudiram Bose and Prafulla Chaki. Notably, Sri Aurobindo was released after a few years for lack of evidence. Consider the third statement. This statement is correct. Savitri, the full name of which is Savitri, a legend and a symbol, is an epic poem of about 24,000 lines written by Sri Aurobindo. Other notable literary works of Sri Aurobindo include Bhagavad Gita and its messages, Rebirth and Karma, and Hour of God. Since the question asks for the correct statements, the answer to this question would be option B, 2 and 3 only. Moving on to the second question. Consider the following pairs of intangible cultural heritage and associated state. There are four such pairs given here. The first one being Raman, Uttarakhand. Second one, Sankirtana, Manipur. Third one, Kudiyattam, Kerala. And fourth one, Kalbelia, Rajasthan. How many of the above pairs is or are correctly matched? Please have a look at the options given. What is the context? This article from the PIB takes note of the President of India greeting the nation on the eve of the Parsi New Year, also known as Navroz. Navroz, meaning new day, is observed by the Parsis to celebrate the beginning of spring. Also note, Navroz is part of the Intangible Cultural Heritage Element list from India as per the UNESCO listing. With this, let's get back to the question. All the four pairs are correctly matched. Let us understand each one in brief. Consider the first one, Raman. It is a popular festival of Garhwal region of Uttarakhand. While Sankirtan involves ritual singing, drumming and dancing in Manipur. Kudiyattam is the Sanskrit theatre practiced in the state of Kerala. Notably, it is one of India's oldest living theatrical traditions. And the last one, Kalbelia, is a folk dance of Rajasthan. It derives its name from the Rajasthani tribe, Kalbelia, which practices this dance form. Since the question asks for the correctly matched pairs, the answer to this question would be option D, all the four pairs. Moving on to the third question. It reads, which of the following statements is or are correct about the Mahanadi river? There are two question statements given here. The first one reads, the river originates in the state of Odisha and drains into the Bay of Bengal. The second statement reads, Sionath, Ib and Tel are the major tributaries of the river. Please have a look at the options given. What is the context? This article from today's The Indian Express takes note of the steps being taken by the Odisha administration to contain the flooding in the river Mahanadi. Note, Mahanadi is also known as the sorrow of Odisha, owing mainly to the frequent and intense flooding caused by the river in the state of Odisha. However, the construction of the Hirakud Dam across the Mahanadi River was helpful in containing the flooding to some extent. Owing to very large rainfall in the upper catchment areas of the Mahanadi River, there are concerns of flooding in Odisha. Takes note of the heavy discharge from important tributaries such as the Tel. With this understanding, let's get back to the question. The first statement is wrong. Why? Because Mahanadi does not originate in the state of Odisha, but it originates in the state of Chhattisgarh. The second statement is correct. While Sionath and Ib are important left bank tributaries, Tel is a right bank tributary. These three tributaries contribute to more than 45% of the total catchment area of the river Mahanadi. Other important tributaries of Mahanadi include the Jong, Hastio, Mand and Ong. Since the question asks for the correct statements, the answer to this question would be B, 2 only. Moving on to the fourth question. It reads, consider the following statements about Khangchendzonga National Park. There are three statements given here. The first one reads, it is located in the state of Sikkim. The second one, it is the first and only mixed World Heritage Site in India and the world over. The third statement reads, a notable aspect is the large altitudinal variation observed over the protected area. Which of the following statements is or are correct? Please have a look at the options given. What is the context? The daily quiz section of the Hindu takes note of the only mixed type World Heritage Site in India, that is the Khangchendzonga National Park. Coming back to the question, the first statement is correct because the Khangchendzonga National Park is indeed located in the state of Sikkim. Consider the second statement. This statement is wrong. Why? Because the first part of the statement is correct. Khangchendzonga is the only mixed World Heritage Site in India, but it is not the only such site in the world over. We have around 39 such mixed World Heritage Sites in the world. So the second statement becomes wrong. The third statement is correct. The vertical sweep of the protected area is over 7 km. That is, it varies from an elevation of around 1220 meters to over 8586 meters. Given that the question asks for the correct statements, the answer to this question would be option C, 1 and 3 only. Moving on to the last question of the day. This is a question from the UPSC 2019 Prelims paper. The question reads, with reference to communication technologies, what is or are the differences between LTE, which reads long-term evolution, and VoLTE, voice over long-term evolution? The two question statements are as follows. LTE is commonly marketed as 3G and VoLTE is commonly marketed as advanced 3G. The second statement reads, LTE is data only technology and VoLTE is voice only technology. Select the correct answer using the code given below. Please have a look at the options given. Please note, LTE is not marketed as 3G but as 4G. Hence, the first statement becomes wrong. Also note, VoLTE is a technology update to the LTE protocol used by the mobile phone networks. Consider the second statement. Please note, under LTE, the infrastructure of telecom players only allows the transmission of data, while voice calls are routed through their older 2G or 3G networks. So the first part of the statement is correct. However, the second part of the statement is wrong. Why? Because VoLTE is both data and voice technology. What happens in VoLTE is that the systems convert voice into data stream which is then transmitted using the data connection itself. Hence, the statement 2 is wrong overall. Given that both the statements are wrong, the answer to this question would be option D, neither 1 nor 2. Moving on to the fact of the day, 3D printed cornea. What is the context? This article from the Hindu takes note of researchers from Hyderabad, including scientists from the LV Prasad Eye Institute based in Hyderabad, Indian Institute of Technology Hyderabad, and the Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, having 3D printed a cornea and having transplanted it into a rabbit's eye. Now, what do we mean by cornea? The cornea is the clear outer layer at the front of the eye. This is the cornea. The cornea helps our eye to focus light so one can see clearly. Hence, it becomes a very important part for eyesight. Now, what do we mean by 3D printing? 3D printing is also known as additive manufacturing. It involves the construction of a three-dimensional object, mostly layer by layer, and involves the deposition, joining, and solidifying under computer control. Now, what is the significance of this development? Corneal damage is the leading cause of blindness worldwide. We have around 1.5 million new cases of corneal blindness reported every year. And there seems to be a large mismatch between demand for corneal tissue as well as supply. Note, only 5% of new cases every year are treated by corneal transplantations. The major reason being the lack of usable corneal tissue from the donors. Also, the lack of adequate eye banking networks makes it all the more difficult to store such corneal tissue for longer times. In this respect, the 3D printed corneas can help bridge this gap. Also note, currently we do have corneal substitutes. They are either animal based or synthetic. One of the major problem in such cases is the use of animal based or synthetic corneal materials can lead to adverse chemical and biological reactions in the recipient. The use of 3D printed cornea from natural products can help eliminate this challenge. Also note, since this equipment will be portable, the 3D printed corneas can be site saving for army personnel injured during wartime. It can help seal the corneal perforation and prevent infection until the army personnel can reach out to tertiary eye care facility. This is all we have for today's discussion. Thank you for being with us.